going to talk to you about the book Unwind, which is by Neal Shusterman, and then I'm going to talk to you about the author, Neal Shusterman, specifically. And I'm going to go over some books that he has written, specifically the book Unwind, which is a great book. And all of you should read it. It's a dystopian novel. Wow. All right, welcome to the graveyard. You arrived here by necessity, you stay by choice. Surviving has earned you the right to be respected. My way is the only way. Your life is my gift to you, treat it like one. You are better than those who would unwind you, so rise to the occasion. Everyone in the graveyard contributes, no exceptions. Teenage rebellion is for suburban school children, which you are not. At 18, you cease to be my concern. Hormones will not rule my desert. Make something of yourself. This is in order. Now what that character is the major in this book called Unwind. He is a military man. And these are his 10 rules for living in his desert. Now what brings you to his desert? What brings you to this spot? It's simple. You have been chosen to be unwound. Now in this novel, unwound means that, well, let's go in a little more detail. This novel is a dystopian novel. Dystopian means it's a future where something has gone wrong. Something is horribly wrong with this world. And in this world, they fought a second civil war. And in that civil war, they fought over reproductive rights, basically abortion. And they came to an agreement to stop the war. And that is no abortion for anyone, except parents can choose to unwind their children after the age of 13. So we can't abort you when you're a little kid, but when you're 13, we can choose, if you're a pain in the butt, if there's no room for you, to send you to a factory where we will use all of your parts for other people. Your eyes, your heart, your toes, your nose. Every part of you has to be used. So you're not dead, you're unwound. Now this book follows multiple character perspectives. There are 3 major ones. I know, it's gruesome. It's gruesome. And the main characters are the top 3. Connor, Levy, known as Lev, and Risa. Connor's parents want to get rid of him because he's kind of a pain. He's a slacker. So they're disappointed in him and they're like, well, we're going to have him unwound, try again. Lev is what's known as a sacrifice. His parents, he's a tithe. They have 10 children. You're required to give 10% to the government. So he's a tax. They have to give one of their 10 children to be unwound. And Risa has no parents at all. She's a ward of the state. And there's not enough money to take care of her. So she's been chosen to be unwound. Now some children like Levy, they go freely. They are happy to be a sacrifice. Others like Connor fight tooth and nail to get away. Because if he can make it till he's 18, they can't unwind him. It's only between 13 and 18. Now these other characters are also Admiral Dumfrey, that was the character that I was playing in the beginning, Cyrus Finch, and Roland. Roland's kind of a bad guy. Now the Heartland War is what this is all about. It happens before the book starts, and it's a second civil war fought in the near future. It was fought over reproductive rights, and the war ravaged on for years until a truce was struck. And this truce was known as the Bill of Life. And in this, the Bill of Life says this: human life may not be touched from the moment of conception until a child reaches the age of 13. However, between the ages of 13 and 18, a parent may choose to unwind their child, on the condition that the child's life doesn't technically end. The process by which a child is both terminated and yet kept alive is called unwinding. Unwinding is now a common and accepted practice in society. It's set in a very near future, too. Now, let's look at a trailer that somebody made, a student made, to give you a better idea of the pacing of this book. And it's really a really cool story. If you read House of the Scorpion, or Fahrenheit 451, or 1984, it's a book like that. It's a future where things have gone awry. It's what we refer to as dystopia. benefit is quite simple. And that is, nobody waits on organ donor lists in this universe. There's a surplus. Need a heart? We got 10 of them right over here. We can give it to you. And in this future, there's no problem putting that in you. We can graft anything. I can give you a new brain if I want to. If you're in an accident, we can give you a new one. One of the characters gets that, and he struggles with that because the other person's still in there. It's very interesting. Now, themes to consider in this novel. When does life begin? What gives life value and meaning? Is it better to die or to be unwound? Which would you choose? Would you rather be carved up into little pieces and kept sort of alive? Or would you fight and maybe die? Should children be required to earn the right to life? You see slackers around you. Should we use them for spare parts? Or should we let them hang around? Who has the right to choose the definition of life? Should the greater good rule supreme? And which should change first? Human nature or law? Is there a proper order to this? These are all huge themes of discussion that you could think about while you're reading this book. It's an awesome book. It's a quick read. It's worth AR points. There's a quiz for you. All right. The author who wrote this is Neal Shusterman. And he's written a ton of books that we have in the library. A lot of them are checked out, but here's what's available right now. We have a book called Dreadlocks, which is about a gang. A book called Ugly Duckling, which is also, I believe, a gang-based book. He writes a lot about that. He has a series of horror collections called Creeping Darkness, where he writes horror stories that are actually pretty scary. He has a book about a kid that's a fighter. And this kid's like a real tough kid, always getting into fights, called Bruiser. He has a fantasy series called Everlost. And there's actually a trilogy of a kid that dies but goes to another place. And it's all about the afterlife. It's really interesting. Who has read The Lovely Bones? Anybody read that book or seen the movie? All right, sort of like that afterlife thing that she deals with. A little bit darker than that, though. And the book, of course, that I talked about is Unwind, which is another book that he has written. Very cool author, written a lot of things that are sci-fi, but he's also an interesting person. Shuster was born in Brooklyn, New York in 1962. He's very opinionated, much like many of you in this room are. I know you all have opinions about stuff. At age 8, he actually wrote to E.B. White. E.B. White wrote Charlotte's Web, exactly. And said, you know, that needs a sequel. I should write that. That's how bold he is. At 8 years old, he tells E.B. White, I should write your sequel here. E.B. White responded and explained he thought it was fine, but to keep writing. Now also, he has an international background. He lived all over the place. When he was 16, his family moved from Brooklyn, New York to Mexico City, and he spent the last 2 years of high school there. So he's fluent in 2 languages. Having international experience changed my life, is what he said. Gave him a fresh perspective and a sense of confidence that he might not have otherwise. And you can find information all about him on storyman.com, which is his website. Now, his college years, he spent his junior and senior year of high school at the American School in Mexico City. And Neal went to college. Neal went to UC Irvine, where he made his mark on the UCI swim team. He was a swimmer there. He also wrote a successful humor column in college, too. So he was a writer from a very young age. Within a year of graduating, he had his first book deal and was hired to write a movie script. So that's very young. He was in his very early 20s. Now he holds 2 degrees, one in psychology and one in drama. And this has helped make him a dynamic speaker. He's the kind of guy that goes around to schools and gives presentations, and you have assemblies to listen to him. We may look into actually getting him to come here on his next tour. He's really a fascinating speaker. And he's written a ton. There's a huge range. We have a lot of them. I just talked about some of the ones. We have Dreadlocks, Bruiser, Unwind, Red Rider's Hood. Those are just 4 of the books that he has. We probably have 20. You just go into the catalog, you type in Shusterman, and a bunch of his books will pop up. And they're almost all fascinating reads. There's a wide range, too. Not just sci-fi. He writes a lot of realistic stuff. Some of Neal Shusterman's books, Everlost is something that I spoke of before, which is a review about a school library journal, which is a fantastic place to get book reviews. He has reimagined what happens after death and questions power and the meaning of charity. While all of this is going on, he also managed to write a rip-roaring adventure. They're actually making this into a movie that will probably come out next year, too. It's going to be huge. Unwind, the book that I just talked to you about, and Scorpion Shard, which is Shusterman takes an outlandish comic book concept and through the sheer audacity and breadth of his imagination makes it stunningly believable, a spellbinder. I don't know a whole lot about this book. I haven't read this one yet. That's just one of the reviews off of storyman.com. It gets excellent reviews, though, and we do have that in the library as well. All right, now he's also, you're probably familiar with some of this. Anybody ever watch Animorphs or any of the Goosebump shows? He's written those. There's many Goosebump books he's written, and he's produced some of the television shows on the Disney Channel. He's also written the movie Pixel Perfect, if you've watched that movie. I think I've seen that before. And she liked that movie. All right, so you would like this guy. All right. So that's her movie. So check that out. So he's done a lot of stuff. He's been busy. All right, if you want to know more about him, he has a Facebook page, so you can friend him and learn all about him. And there's also a great bio about the author at storyman.com. Don't go to Wikipedia, actually. He must have somebody that doesn't like him, because on Wikipedia there's a whole bunch of nasty things about him that aren't true. So Wikipedia has some really inaccurate information about him. I'm not sure if he has an enemy or what the deal is, but there's some really inaccurate stuff on there. All right, anyone interested in reading any of the books that I talked about today, specifically Unwind? I have one copy. All right, we have our first taker right there. All right, I'll check this out to you, dear.
Do you have Everlost with you?
Everlost I don't have with me. It's back in the library, but I can put it on hold for you. I'll sit up behind the desk, stop by and get it.
Sure.
Questions about this guy? Thank you for being a great audience. You guys rock. Good stuff. I'm done. Thank you.